Okay, welcome everyone to week 8 of this tradition study, and this week we are on tradition 8. So let's start with the customary manner as we do each week with the responsibility statement. Excuse me, bear with me, I'm just having some tech issues with the PowerPoint. Okay, so I am responsible. When anyone, anywhere reaches out for help, I want the hand of AA always to be there, and for that, I am responsible. Thanks. And I've just got those 3 legacies there. We've been through all this before, so I won't go through it now. We'll maybe go through it again at the very end when we're on tradition 12. So just briefly, looking at where we've come from and where we're going, I'll just ask everyone if you can mute, please. I can't see my controls properly here, but I just heard a bit of noise there that can be distracting. Unity, leadership, membership requirement, group autonomy, singleness of purpose to carry the message, not getting involved in outside enterprises, being self-supporting, standing on our own 2 feet, and tradition 8, about giving it away. And then that bookends that we looked at, which has grouped the traditions into groups, monies and antes. So this is the last one of 6, 7 and 8. So 6 was that we never endorse, finance or lend the AA name to outside enterprises. Less problems of money, property and prestige divert us from that primary purpose. And we can get carried away and distracted and forget what we're here for by those alluring objects of power, property, money, prestige, power, and so on. And of course, then self-supporting, and then being non-professional, the topic of today's tradition 8, and which the short form reads, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centres may employ special workers. So hopefully I won't repeat. I know sometimes the material within the tradition is repeated between the illustrated pamphlet, between the language of the heart, and so on, but I'll try not to repeat too much. But I have also got AA Comes of Age. I might read from that. We'll see how we go for time and how the other material is. And I found a wonderful new website, which I hadn't come across before because I didn't really look on the internet a lot when I was preparing for this traditions workshop. I just went straight to our books, our literature and pamphlets. So I did put that in the WhatsApp group. It's tape12.org, and it looks like that's got a really nice traditions study in it as well. And so the long form of tradition 8, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional. We define professionalism as the occupation of counselling alcoholics for fees or hire, but we may employ alcoholics where they are going to perform those services for which we might otherwise have to engage non-alcoholics. Such special services may be well recompensed, but our usual AA 12-step work is never to be paid for. So there's 2 issues this covers. One is that our 12th step work, taking people through the steps, sharing our experience, strength and hope with someone else that they may also recover, that is never to be paid for. It's always for fun and for free, but there are other certain jobs that need doing within AA to keep AA going. So answering phones in our service centres, answering emails, or keeping the treasury, or whatever it is, different service roles that need to be done. And so we're allowed to pay AA members to do those jobs if we were going to have to pay someone anyway. So we will go through the literature and find out more about Tradition 8 and learn what it's about. And there's a lot of confusion about Tradition 8 out there, as there is with a lot of the traditions. But just before that, I do want to read this page 79 out of AA Comes of Age. I can't remember if I read this at Tradition 1 or not, but if I didn't, I should have. And if I did, I'm going to repeat it here. It's just such a beautiful reading. And it must be from maybe one of the earlier conventions or a public talk of Bill, but it's on page 79 of AA Comes of Age, and it says Unity, the Second Legacy. Today, we in AA are together, and we know we are going to stay together. We are at peace with each other and with the world around us. Remember, because by this stage, we have had a spiritual awakening through the 12 steps, and we move on in that clockwise direction around that circle triangle into the traditions and into service and unity. So many of our conflicts are resolved, that our destiny seems secure. The problems of yesterday have produced the blessings of today. Ours is not the usual success story. Rather, it is the story of how, under God's grace, an unsuspected strength has arisen out of great weakness, of how, under threats of unity and collapse, worldwide unity and brotherhood have been forged. In the course of this experience, we have evolved a set of traditional principles by which we live and work together and relate ourselves as a fellowship to the world around us. These principles are called the 12 Traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous. They represent the distilled experience of our past, and we rely on them to carry us in unity through the challenges and dangers which the future may bring. It was not always so. In the early days, we saw that it was one thing for a few alcoholics to get well, but the problem of living and working together was something else. Therefore, it was into an uncharted future that we looked from the window of Dr. Bob's living room in 1937, when we realized that alcoholics might be able to get well in large numbers. The world around us, the world of more normal people, was being torn apart. Could we recovered alcoholics hold together? Could we carry AA's message? Could we function as groups and as a whole? No one could say. Our friends, the psychiatrists, with some reason had begun to warn. This fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous is emotional dynamite. Its neurotic contents can blow it to bits. When drinking, we were certainly explosive enough. Now that we were sober, would dry benders and emotional jags blow us up? So I won't read on, but that is beautiful stuff in there. And AA Comes of Age is an absolute must, in my opinion, for any member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And Kim is actually doing AA Comes of Age in WIM on a weekly basis at the moment. I don't know the time. Obviously, the time's never going to fit everyone. I know it's 8 p.m. Friday Eastern Standard Time. So let's go on to Language of the Heart. Tradition 8, July 1948. Throughout the world, AAs are 12-stepping with thousands of new prospects a month. Between 1,000 and 2,000 of these stick on our first presentation. Past experience shows that most of the remainder will come back to us later on. Almost entirely unorganised and completely non-professional, this mighty spiritual current is now flowing from alcoholics who are well to those who are sick. One alcoholic talking to another, that's all. Could this vast and vital face-to-face effort ever be professionalised or even organised? Most emphatically, it could not. The few efforts to professionalise straight 12th step work have always failed quickly. Today, no AA will tolerate the idea of paid AA therapists or organisers, nor does any AA like to be told just how he must handle that new prospect of his. No, this great life-giving stream can never be dammed up by paid do-gooders or professionals. Alcoholics Anonymous is never going to cut its own lifelines. To a man, we are sure of that. But what about those who serve us full-time in other capacities? Are cooks, caretakers and paid intergroup secretaries AA professionals? Because our thinking about these people is still unclear, we often feel and act as though they were such. The impression of professionalism subtly attaches to them, so we frequently hear they are making money out of AA or that they are professionalising AA. Seemingly, if they do take our AA dollars, they don't quite belong with us AAs anymore. We sometimes go further. We underpay them on the theory they ought to be glad to cook for AA cheap. Now, isn't this carrying our fears of professionalism rather far? If these fears ever get too strong, none but a saint or an incompetent could work for Alcoholics Anonymous. Our supply of saints being quite small, we would certainly wind up with less competent workers than we need. We are beginning to see that our few paid workers are performing only those service tasks that our volunteers cannot consistently handle. Primarily, these folks are doing 12-step work. Primarily these folks are not doing 12-step work. They are just making more and better 12-step work possible. Secretaries at their desks are valuable points of contact, information, and public relations. That is what they are paid for and nothing less. They help carry the good news of AA to the outside world and bring our prospects face to face with us. That's not AA therapy. It's just a lot of very necessary but often thankless work. So where needed, let's revise our attitude towards those who labour at our special services. Let us treat them as AA associates and not as hired help. Let's recompense them fairly, and above all, let's absolve them from the label of professionalism. Let us also distinguish clearly between organising the AA movement and setting up in a reasonably business-like manner its few essential services of contact and propagation. Once we do that, all will be well. The million or so fellow alcoholics who are still sick will then continue to get the break we 60,000 AAs have already had. Let's give our service desks the hand they so well deserve. And so the reason I want to look at AA Comes of Age, and I know that's not one of the books that I specifically said that we should read, but AA Comes of Age has a really good story that I think illustrates this tradition best. Now, I didn't mark the page. Where are we? 8th tradition. Tradition 8. 114. AA Comes of Age, 114. And so there's the distinction between our AA 12-step work, which can never be paid for, but other workers do need to be paid for their work. And here's a story about how it came about. So this is Bill talking. He said, "You remember how I was told by AA's group conscience," and it's page 115 on AA Comes of Age. "You remember how I was told by AA's group conscience that I could not go to work for Charlie Towns as a professional therapist, and that was right. Early in the game, we discovered that under no conditions should an AA be paid for taking or carrying this message to somebody else, person to person and face to face. That was out. If professionalism ever invaded us at that level, we were doomed. But the issue of professionalism had other aspects. For years, we were trying to figure out what in AA was professionalism and what was not. This problem arose out of the need for paid workers in our service centres, the need for people who would do the jobs that volunteers could not or would not do. Were service workers professionals or were they not? That was the issue. The first situation of this kind that I can remember came up in the old clubhouse on 24th Street in New York. Volunteers had painted the place and shined it up and were answering the telephone, and that was fine. When they went home, they would hand out numerous keys for the benefit of the night owls. But some of the night owls had a habit of getting stewed and lying around the place in all conditions and at all hours. That was not good. The volunteers also got very tired of sweeping out the place, so it stayed dirty most of the time. Plainly enough, we needed a caretaker. Well, we approached old Tom, a fireman we had recently sprung out of Rockland Asylum. We were shrewd. We already knew that Tom had a pension as a fireman. So we said to him, "How would you like to come over, Tom, and live at the club? Nice room for you there." Tom said, "What's the angle?" "Well, Tom, we'll give you a nice room and you can kind of look after the place." Tom said, 7 days a week? "Yeah, what am I supposed to do?" "Well, Tom, you ought to make the coffee and, lead the drunks out if they're too bad and sweep the place up." "Do that 7 days a week?" said Tom. "What you guys want is a janitor." All right, we said, sure, we want a janitor. Well, said Tom, ain't you going to pay me nothing? Oh, no, we said, that would make you a professional. This is Alcoholics Anonymous. We must not mix money with spirituality. Okay, said Tom, no money, no work. I'm doing my 12-step work free, but if you're going to have me here as a janitor, you're going to pay me, see? Lots of us were working at that time and earning money, but believe it or not, we actually haggled with that old man to get him down to the last cent we could for doing that grubby job. But old Tom was right. In order for AA to function, we had to hire some help. And so I'll leave it there. I hope that sort of makes it pretty clear the difference between we do have to have some paid workers and also 12-step work is never paid for. That's the distinction. And there's also, all right, so let's go on to the illustrated pamphlet, Tradition 8 on the illustrated pamphlet. Just trying to find that now. All right, can everyone see that? So that looks, so there's a fellow, he's awake. Oh, you can't see it? Can you see it now? Yep. Okay. So Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centres may employ special workers. So the distinction between who gets paid and for what, and who doesn't get paid and for what. And so there's a picture of a man, his phone has rung in the middle of the night, and, it looks like it's blowing a gale and a storm and raining. And the thought bubble in his mind says, no one could pay me to go out on a night like this. But what he says to the drunk on the other end of the phone, yeah, okay, I'll be right over. And I think that little picture really captures it well. Yeah. When I think about when I hit rock bottom with my drinking, I didn't care about money. I had plenty of money. I had enough money and I just didn't care. It didn't mean anything to me. It didn't bring me happiness or freedom. What has brought me happiness and freedom was given to me for fun and for free. So if I put myself in that person's shoes, if someone's offering me money, I can easily say, well, no, I don't want it. I don't need it unless the job suits me. But when it comes to what's been given freely to me, then, yeah, I have that responsibility and I don't think about what it costs because actually it's going to pay me handsomely and not in money. And then there's another picture there of a fellow, he's putting a poster up on the wall and it says, AA therapy, drunks helped here, 1 hour, $10. So, there's a lot of people out there doing it, all kinds of sober coaches and whatever it is. And that's none of my business. It's not what I'm doing. I do work as a counsellor in the alcohol field, but I'm paid as a professional. I'm not an AA counsellor. And the only difference between me and any of my colleagues is that I know and understand Alcoholics Anonymous in a way that many of them don't. And I'm able to, put myths and misconceptions aside about Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm able to answer questions accurately that people might have about Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, so I'll just read the illustrated pamphlet as well. This is usually a good read as well as the pictures being very helpful. Spiritual as it is, AA remains very much of this world. So yeah, Alcoholics Anonymous is a spiritual entity. Think of it as a triune or 3-part spiritual entity, the steps, the traditions, the concepts. The 8th tradition, like the 7th tradition, focuses on a vulgar 5-letter word that isn't actually mentioned in either, money. Many of us have had to explain to some cynical prospect, no, I'm not a social worker. I don't get paid for talking with you. I'm doing it because it's the best way to stay sober myself. This does not mean, of course, that the idea of turning professional has never entered any AA's mind. In the lean years, Bill W. did think of becoming a lay therapist to earn money through his experience in helping alcoholics. But with a strong nudge from the group conscience, he soon realised that he could never hang out a shingle reading Bill W. AA therapist $10 an hour. It became clear to the early members that no AA should ever ask or accept payment for carrying this message to somebody else, person to person and face to face. And this is what really sets AA apart from most other organisations or groups in society. You know, most things are for sale at the right price, but not Alcoholics Anonymous. It's always free and self-supporting. But new questions arose as membership grew and the word of hope spread, sending thousands of alcoholics in search of AA. The first intergroups or central offices were usually manned by AA volunteers. Now, most such offices are so busy that full-time employees are needed as well. Naturally, AAs are better suited to such jobs than are non-members, but these AAs then being paid for doing 12-step work? No, in the office they are just paving the way for this work, arranging to get a sick drunk into a hospital, telling a shaky newcomer where the nearest meeting is tonight. They are helping to make it possible for that alcoholic to hear the message person to person and face to face. A similar development has taken place at the Fellowship's headquarters. Once a tiny office for one co-founder, Bill, and one secretary, it has grown into the present General Service Office, fully staffed with a big mail room, keeping the lines of communication open throughout AA worldwide. The employees, both AA and non-alcoholic, are paid on a scale comparable to that in profit-making enterprises, so that the office force can function dependably, and the AA staff members are in exactly the same position as the AA intergroup employees. Suppose you drop in at GSO one day when you're in New York. Staff members who pause to chat with you may have been working on next year's conference or corresponding with a group in your home area, helping it to carry the message more effectively. For that, they are paid bi-weekly checks. But you may also hear them mention to other staff members plans for taking a newcomer to a meeting in the evening or for giving an AA talk to a neighbourhood group the next week. For that, they are paid only with their own continuing sobriety. In these office jobs and in other assignments, members are actually paid for their business and professional skills. Working at a GSO desk on conference-approved books and pamphlets or on the grapevine, these AAs use their abilities as correspondence managers, writers, editors, artists, proofreaders, as well as their understanding of AA from the inside. On occasion, volunteers have given their time and talent to all these services, and their contributions are deeply appreciated. But what if the fellowship decided that all such assignments should be handled only by unpaid volunteers? In present-day AA, there's too great a volume of work to be done in spare hours here and there, and only the rich or the retired could afford to work full-time. If we tried to find in this limited group people qualified for particular tasks, obviously the field would be narrowed down, too often down to nobody at all. There would be another problem in using volunteers alone. It seems ungrateful, or at least it's socially awkward, to criticise or reject a job done for free. But paid jobs for AA get quite a going over. Take our literature, for instance, like this pamphlet. Whatever the subject, we want to be sure that each expresses as clearly as possible the view of the group conscience of AA as a whole. So any new project must first be approved by the conference. Once it is in process, the Literature Committee of the General Service Board keeps a careful eye on it at every stage. Frequently, drastic changes are required. The finished product then must be okayed both by that committee and by the Conference Literature Committee, and further revisions are often... Now, wait a minute, some old-timer may interrupt. What's going on here? Didn't Dr. Bob say, let's keep it simple? And that reminds me of a story I heard where one of the little pamphlets in AA, it's like a little cartoon booklet. I think it's called It Happened to Joe. I think it was 14 years in the making because it went backwards and forwards for revisions and going over and another group conscience and arguing the point over where this full stop or comma should go, or whatever it was. So anyway, that's why they threw in that sentence about Dr. Bob saying, keep it simple. And so let's have a look at what's next. And so just as those paid employees in the office might use their skills, but they're also an AA member, as I've spoken of my own experience, just because I work in the alcohol field, that's not my recovery. I might as well be working in horticulture or in a different field. There's a very clear line for me between my recovery and my work. And there are times when dealing with the alcoholic madness, the stigma, the insanity that's out there in the world, not just with alcoholics, but people around them who still don't recognize this terrible illness. I'm literally running to a meeting from work. I need my sanity from Alcoholics Anonymous. And so when I'm in AA, I'm not a counsellor, I'm nothing like that. I'm just an ordinary member of Alcoholics Anonymous, fall down, blackout drunk that's sober by the grace of God. And when I'm at work, I'm not a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am paid for the job that I do. And although I am very enthusiastic about referring people to Alcoholics Anonymous, and maybe there's times when I need to tone that down a bit, I'm not sure, probably need to look at that. And I'll just, before I go on to the daily reflections reading, when I first took my job in the alcohol and drug field about 9 years ago, I spoke to a woman who I know had worked in the field, and she said point blank, no, we've got no business working there. Now, that's not what our literature tells us. That's not what our guidelines tell us. Our guidelines, well, they give us guidelines for members of Alcoholics Anonymous working in those related fields. And back to AA Comes of Age, it says on page 117, it is significant now that almost no AA in our fellowship breaks anonymity at the general public level, and so nearly all these fears have subsided. Okay, so they've gone on to talk about, anonymity, but he's also talking about Tradition 8 here. He says, we see that we have no right or need to discourage AAs who wish to work as individuals in these wider fields. They're talking about alcohol education, alcoholism, medicine, hospitals, these kind of things. It said it would be actually antisocial were we to discourage them. We cannot declare AA such a closed corporation that we keep our knowledge and experience top secret. If an AA member acting as a citizen can become a better researcher, education, or personnel officer, why not? Everybody gains, we have lost nothing. True, some of the projects to which AAs have attached themselves have been ill-conceived, but that makes not the slightest difference in the principle involved. And so the reading from Daily Reflections is on page 252. If anyone has their daily reflections, you can read along. 252, and it's August 31, a unique program. And it's from the 12 and 12, page 166. Alcoholics Anonymous will never have a professional class. We have gained some understanding of the ancient words, freely ye have received, freely give. We have discovered that at the point of professionalism, money and spirituality do not mix. I believe that Alcoholics Anonymous stands alone in the treatment of alcoholism because it is based solely on the principle of one alcoholic sharing with another alcoholic. So that tells me, and we've learned in the big book too, no non-alcoholic can reach an alcoholic the way an alcoholic can reach an alcoholic. And just because of the way this spiritual program and spiritual way of life is, it cannot be paid for. And like the literature said, which I read earlier, said if we think we're going to do that, we are doomed. And continuing that reading on page 252 of Daily Reflections, this is what makes the program unique. When I decided that I wanted to stay sober, I called a woman who I knew was a sober member of AA, and she carried the message of Alcoholics Anonymous to me. She received no monetary compensation, but rather was paid by staying sober another day herself. Today, I could ask for no payment other than another day free from alcohol. So in that respect, I am generously paid for my labour. And I've certainly always found myself to be very generously paid through Alcoholics Anonymous for any effort I've put in. And I've just found this other reading from the website that I mentioned, the take12.org, and it goes through particular spiritual principles for each tradition. And so I'm bringing this in late in the game. We're already at tradition 8 that I found it, but I'll just recap on tradition 7 of the spiritual principle there, and it reads, self-support lent me a sense of freedom of thought and of action. As an AA member, I knew I was not bound by what other people thought. That helped me to open up my mind and start to think for myself. For the first time in a long time, AA gave me proof that money and spirituality can mix. So that's it just depends on the context, how we use words and phrases in AA. So we need to make sure that, because in tradition 8, it says money and spirituality don't mix. And here they're saying in tradition 7, as an individual, yes, I can, individual AA members can be as wealthy as they want to be. And it doesn't mean they're any less spiritual, but AA as a whole stays poor. And then this little reading their story for tradition 8 and 9. When I began AA service work, these traditions 8 and 9 told me I was simply one of many trusted servants for whom special training or talent was unimportant. The fact that this society was non-professional was reassuring. Titles and degrees became trivial. I felt a new sense of responsibility to myself and to others. It made me aware of pride and ambition as defects, so I could commence to learn my true identity before God. And the last one from me is the traditions checklist as we go through each week. Very useful for me to look at as an individual. So 1, does my own behaviour accurately mirror the traditions? If not, what needs changing? So that, even just that one question, that there's a lot of work for me that I could look at to go through each of the 12 traditions and ask myself, is my behaviour mirroring the principle of unity, the principle of acknowledging a loving God as being the ultimate power, and so on, down through the traditions. And so if anyone tells me that they're done or they're finished, they've done this program, I'd certainly want to challenge them on that. Or if someone tells me they're bored, of course, there's a lot of hands-on service always to be done in Alcoholics Anonymous. Never any excuse to be bored. And question 2, when I chafe about any particular tradition, do I realise how it affects others? So, yeah, for me personally, I can be very opinionated and dogmatic. So I need to look at that, watch that, how, and in general, how does my conduct affect others? Number 3, do I sometimes try to get some reward, even if not money, for my personal AA efforts? Looking for praise or recognition or anything like that, the ego, the pride. Or do I try to sound in AA like an expert on alcoholism, on recovery, on medicine, on sociology, on AA itself, on psychology, on spiritual matters, or heaven help me, even on humility? 5, do I make an effort to understand what AA employees do, what workers in other alcoholism agencies do? Can I distinguish clearly among them? I definitely have to plead ignorance on that. I'm very, very one-eyed about what AA does, and I'm not that interested in what other people do, I'll be honest. Oops. 6, do I know where my local meeting directory comes from? So where's your local intergroup or central service office? Different countries have slightly different names for their structures, or slightly different organisations in their AA structure. In my own AA life, have I had any experiences which illustrate the wisdom of this tradition? And I've shared about my experience of working in that field and how definitely I've always got room for improvement in juggling those two hats and making sure I've got the right hat on at the right time. And 8, have I read the book 12 Steps and 12 Traditions? And so that's what I've set for you all as homework, hoping that you've been reading the tradition in question each week. And in case anyone hasn't had a look at it, right at the beginning of the book, there is that synopsis. It gives you a synopsis of each step and a synopsis of each tradition. It's just a nice little snippet, introductory piece about what the traditions are, each particular tradition. And how about the pamphlet, AA Tradition, how it developed? We did introduce that one. I don't know if you can see it, but it's the P17. It's a little bit dry reading in places I found, but if you can get into it, worth it like any AA literature. And the last one, can my group rely on me to fulfill my service responsibilities without someone checking on me? So that's a good one. Am I doing what I said I was going to do? And so that's my part over with. If anyone's got questions, comments, shares, please put your hand up and I'll come to you. Hi, Nikki.
Oh, hi, everyone. Hi, I'm Nikki, an alcoholic. Thank you for the meeting and for going through the Tradition 8. I just wanted to ask you, or anyone really, because you mentioned it, you're working in a similar field, but you don't have your AA hat on. But because we're there always to pass the message on, and wherever we are, if we come across that, if we have that opportunity, how do you draw the line? Say if you're in your workplace, say if you're dealing with people and you think, oh, and obviously you want to recommend AA because it's a solution, but how does one, rather than putting the onus on you, how do you distinguish? How do you have that healthy boundary where you've got your professionalism and you also want to offer the solution? So how to share it without treading on people's toes?
So I think what you're talking about really is anonymity, which is Tradition 11. And personal anonymity really is a personal matter. Some people are very, very free with their anonymity. They'll tell everyone at the drop of a hat, hey, I'm a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. They'll tell anyone, anywhere, anytime if they think it's going to help someone. That's sort of one end of the scale. And the other end of the scale is they don't tell anyone. As far as the whole rest of the world knows, this person just blends in, but they quietly go off to their AA meeting and never talk about it outside of Alcoholics Anonymous. And then you've got anyone and everyone in between. But recently I got pulled over for a random blood alcohol test. I don't know if they have them in your country. I guess they do. They set up a big bus. They have 3 or 4 police officers lined up along the street, and I got pulled over. And so what I did was I got my purse, pulled out an AA business card, blew into the pipe. Of course, I've blown 0. And I went to pass the guy this card. He must have thought I was giving him my phone number. I mean, I do like a guy in uniform, but steady on, pal, don't flatter yourself. I said, no. I said, maybe you can give this card to someone. I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've been sober for 28 years. And he goes, oh, wow, good job. So I gave him the little card. So I was so excited about that. That was my little 12-step job for the day. So I broke my anonymity. He doesn't know me. Bye, Karen. he doesn't know me, probably won't ever see me again or whatever. And so anonymity, yep, it's a person. From my understanding, it's totally a personal choice how free or closely someone keeps their personal anonymity.
Okay,
Hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Yes, apart from, see, I'm not working at the moment, but I attend a lot of workshops. And because I know that the solution to our problems is in a AA or another 12-step program because of the 12 steps, when people are struggling in these workshops where they're just using human aid, of course, I just think, oh, but there is. So I want to share that information, but it's like, how do you go about it without stepping on the toes of, do I do it confidently and just say, why not? Or because I'm ginger about it, because I don't know if I'm going to, is it okay if I mention this? So I kind of clear it with them first to say, is it okay if I mention something that I think could be helpful?
Do you mean like a course facilitator or leader or someone?
Yeah. It's I want the etiquette, I'm not doing anything.
Look, that kind of etiquette would be different depending on the group, depending on the person. There is a lot of prejudice out there still about Alcoholics Anonymous. You may just by chance run across someone who has a passion for hating AA, in which case it's not going to end well. You may come across someone who's a real fan of AA. You may come across someone who's had a negative experience with AA or another 12-step program. You just don't know what you're going to get out there. When I was at uni, in one of the units, someone mentioned Alcoholics Anonymous. Immediately, a woman from the back of the class jumped up, put her hand up, and gave this horror story about her friend that had been victim of a predator in Alcoholics Anonymous. And then she went on to talk about how AA is a kind of cult, and it was just a nightmare. It was a friggin' nightmare. And I just kept my mouth shut. I thought, I'm not getting in the ring with you, darling. No way. I am not saying a word. I'm just going to keep quiet. Nobody in that room knew I was in AA at the time. I think I was maybe 8 or 10 years sober or something. Absolutely not. I wasn't going to say anything. I just sat quietly, waited for it to pass. But then, another time, one of our tutors, she was a PhD student and she was tutoring us first-year students. I'm guessing she was an alcoholic. She disgraced herself in front of half of the university at some bar or nightclub. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone was gossiping about it. It was awful. So I jumped up with my big book, went to the whoever she was, the lecturer, professor, whatever, shared my story. I was so enthusiastic. I'm thinking, there's a chapter here to employers. You can get this woman into AA. She's destroying her career. She's destroying her reputation. You can help her and all this. And I was so excited. And this woman was just like, she was just dead. This woman, I think, I'm being very judgmental here, but she just wasn't interested. So sadly, a lot of the time, people with a lot of education, get these preconceived ideas about AA. They're very dismissive. So, that just fell flat on flat ears. But who knows? I can't remember whether I gave her that big book or what the story was. But who knows? It might have planted a seed. It might have done something. Maybe it didn't do anything. It probably helped me. I probably felt good that I'd at least tried. I'd at least said something, because my heart went out to this poor woman to disgrace herself like that. Heartbreaking.
Thank you.
Did you want to come in, Jill?
Yeah, thanks, Tuija. Thanks very much for the meeting, as always. This has been great again, and thanks everybody for being here. And just kind of what you're talking about, I'm kind of getting up to the courts just now, and it's the alcohol court. It's a new thing that started in Glasgow, and they've got the chance whether they either go to prison or they take support from the alcohol and the addiction side. You know, they have to clock in sort of thing. They have to attend meetings with their addiction worker, and they have to be part of the social work. And it's quite hard, you know, to approach people, because if you're getting up, you know, and you're saying, hi, I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, straight away they think, oh, well, hold on a wee second. You know, what do you think? Do you think I've got a problem with drinking? Do you think, you know, I've just got to go here because I can't go to prison? You know, and some of them are really quite offended, you know, but some of them are over the moon. But there was a woman yesterday, you know, and I mean, she was, you can't tell anybody's an alcoholic, can you? You can't tell anybody if they're an alcoholic or not, you know, but you can kind of tell, you know, a lot of the time, you know, and this woman had it kind of written all over her face, you know, and we spoke to her, but you know what, we done something really silly, right? And it was my idea as well, right? Because, and I took full responsibility to realise that it was really stupid what I'd done, right? And we went to speak to her as she came out of the court, but she was still speaking to a lawyer. And the lawyer said, oh, she needs to go down the stairs first to fill in the social work card. Can you speak to her afterwards? So, of course, we went in the lift with her. So we're all in the lift together, you know, and my friend that was with me started speaking to her and all that, and she got really offensive. And she was like, who are you? And why is there two of you? What are you? You know, and she got really aggressive. You know, and when the lift door opened, she just ran out the lift door and she threw her social work card at us, you know, as if that was really going to hurt us, you know. But then the poor woman had to come back and pick it back up because she needed it, obviously, you know, as well, so she had to come back into the lift. But it just reminded me, you know, when you think about it, when you come in here for the first time, you know, and you know nothing about AA, and you're still in that anger, and if anybody to say to you, you know, if you get a problem with your drinking, you're like, cut off. No, of course I don't, you know. And I was so angry as well. So a lesson learned, you know, was not to get them cornered in the lift, you know, and make them come to Alcoholics Anonymous. So there's what not to do, Nikki. And the other thing about the Tradition 8 that we're talking about, you know, is I had a wee kind of experience of that as well when I was living in Spain. In our group, we had to kind of clean up a wee bit, like that guy was talking about being the janitor. And in our group, the group had a lot of, oh, it was horrible. It was full of like dead cockroaches. So it was, right. And I don't know why, but every time we came in, the room would be full of them, you know, just where we were. And they asked if somebody would clean up the place, because it was a massive place we had. It was like a kind of call centre. And I was kind of thinking, well, yeah, I've got the time, you know, and I was kind of thinking in my head, cleaner, it's a lot of work to do. But I did agree to it, you know, and I says, yeah, okay, I'll do it, you know, because obviously giving back to AA, you know. But I was quite surprised when they said to me, no, Jill, we'll have to pay you for it. And I says, no, I don't want paid for it, even though inside of me was saying, yeah, I do want paid for it. I says, no, I don't want paid for it, you know, and they says, no, because it's not, we are fully self-supported here, so we have to pay you for doing this job because it's not a part of AA. And I did get paid for doing that job. And that's really the only thing I've ever done in AA that I've ever been paid for, you know. And I think if they had to change it, that you had to get paid, you know, like when I came in at first, I remember thinking, oh, they're sponsoring all that sponsorship and all that. I could open up, you know, big crazy head. I could open up a rehab once I go through this programme, you know, full of the great ideas that's already in the traditions, you know. People have already done it before me, you know, and all these ideas, but of course it doesn't come to that, you know, and like you said, you get paid in more than money, you know. Money isn't important for that work, is it? You know, so yeah, it's been great. I'm really enjoying going through the traditions, and I started my own little tradition study just with some of the women that I've been helping, and it went really well on Sunday. We done two traditions. We done a tradition one, then we stopped and we had lunch out in the garden, and then we done tradition two, and it was really nice, you know. And I just love doing this stuff now, you know, especially face to face. I'm really loving it, you know. From the time last year when I really wasn't that bothered about doing it, I've realised now that it's just part of my life now, you know. I just want to do it all the time. So thanks Tuija again for the meeting today. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jill. And really great to hear about your tradition study at home then. That sounds lovely, and it's nice to have a little workshop like that and stop and have a bite to eat and then continue. That is so, it just sounds so fulfilling, and yeah, enjoying the spiritual riches of AA. And so next week, I think that's all for this one. I did have there was something I was thinking of. I can't remember what it was now, but yeah, so hopefully that's been clear enough for everyone. And I like Jill's story there about the cleaning and, yeah, having to be paid for it, because we're going to have to pay someone. So some of these jobs could be done by non-alcoholics, but if there's alcoholics there to do it, might as well pay them to do it. And it's a beautiful thing when you think about how this thing works, that those special office workers, yep, they've got all these administrative skills that can keep the office going. But if someone rings up, they know they've got that intimate knowledge of the program, where the meetings are, you know, where they might find a sponsor and that kind of thing, what AA really is about. Whereas if they ring one of these other helplines, people might not give them the right information about what Alcoholics Anonymous really is. And we learn by doing. We don't need any special skills, information, education, nothing like that, only our own experience as alcoholics and as recovered alcoholics. And so next week we've got Tradition 9, and Deanna's going to do 1 or 2 readings out of Daily Reflections for us. The week after that, I'm actually going to be away. Karen is doing the readings out of Tradition 10. Jill is going to host for us. Thank you so much, Jill, for agreeing to step up. And Jill, are you doing the readings for Tradition 12 in the last week? Did you put your hand up for that one? Yeah. And so Tradition 11, Vicky was doing that, but she's not able to be here anymore. So if anyone hasn't done a tradition and would like to put their hand up to do Tradition 11 with us, I can put your name down. Or if someone wants to double up and have another go, anyway, let me know. And we will finish. If there's nothing else anyone wanted to share, we'll finish in the usual fashion with the responsibility statement. Sorry, my one last bit of technical foo-foo. All right. I am responsible when anyone, anywhere reaches out for help. I want the hand of AA always to be there, and for that I am responsible. Amen.